you, Mr. Coulombe, what is your inspiration behind researching and writing history texts? And what would you consider some of the main themes of history from a Catholic perspective that are paralleled in the writings of the Inklings?
Well, that's a very good question. And actually, Father Allsouls' talk is precisely it. My dealing with history has always been under the understanding that history is really the working out of the divine will in time against the backdrop of innumerable independent and fallen wills. We're all a part of history.
Absolutely.
And we tend to think, especially in the modern world, that everything is sort of irrelevant, nothing is connected, nothing really means anything. It's just sort of there. And correspondingly, history, in the way it's often taught, becomes a sort of disconnected series of pointless occurrences. But that's not true at all. The truth is that every one of us is sitting here in this room today because of an almost incredible concatenation of circumstances.
This is true.
No romance writer could have come up and made this story.
No.
It's simply not possible. And if you think back about some of the great things in history, World War I, had it not happened the way it did, I would never have been born. And there are a lot of other people in the same boat. We're all a part of it, you see, this grand tapestry. And
thread in the weave.
Big pardon?
A thread in the weave.
Just so. Just so. So that has always been my inspiration behind the writing of history. And I suspect, for the reasons Father made very clear, that they were shared by, well, I share them, he had them, I share the idea, I didn't say. But in certainly the work of Tolkien, we see a lot, more so than Lewis, certainly more so than Charles Williams, although he does in things like
Charles
war.
Williams is kind of a forgotten inkling.
He is the forgotten inkling, but I love him. But I'm fond of all of them.
You like the underdogs.
Well, there's that. But also, he does touch very strongly in War and Heaven on historical things, including recusancy, which you wouldn't expect from Charles Williams, but there it is. I think he gives the most sympathetic coverage of recusancy I've seen by a writer like that. But at any rate, with Tolkien, where you see some real parallels with real world history are two basic themes. One is the return of the king. Aragorn starts out as a sort of Bonnie Prince Charlie figure, and the Dunedain are like Jacobites, here and there, scattered, doing what they do, etc. But then he succeeds where Bonnie Prince Charlie failed, and he goes from being Bonnie Prince Charlie to being Charlemagne. He describes medieval monarchy. One of the things we tend to forget when we say monarchy is that in the Middle Ages, the state as such did not exist. I mean, our idea of a heavily centralized state with a secret police and internal revenue and all the fun stuff we enjoy today.
Civilization.
Well,
the pains of civilization.
It didn't exist. Instead, in a sense, the state was almost a mutually imagined thing. The King's Peace, for instance, the phrase we still use, even in America.
Yeah.
It's, in a sense, meaningless today. But in the Middle Ages, it was a state that was maintained by the king's loyal subjects. So you've got someone playing the robber on the king's highway, we raise the hue and cry. We go out, we get him. Right. And the king's peace is restored. But what did the king do with that? Not a thing. It was almost a platonic ideal, the king's peace. So part of the brilliance of the trilogy is that he has all these different things woven together the way they are in real life. So that's the thing about it. They're woven together the way they are in real life. And I think part of the reason people unconsciously respond to it is that it does have a feeling of reality to it. And I don't mean reality in the sense of the artificial world it creates. So it is very realistic and so on, absolutely. But there is the feeling that, yeah, this is really the way the universe works. It's not a conscious feeling, because as with everything he doesn't hit us over the head with it.
An underlying reality.
Exactly. He's very careful not to preach, and yet he does, although, because remember, well, I hate to quote Orwell, especially in this setting, but as Orwell said, and I'm going to misquote him now that I'm thinking of it, something to the effect of, in a culture based on lies, telling the truth is a subversive act. Well, similarly, Tolkien told the truth about reality. And he did so in a way that people of all sorts, of many different cultural backgrounds, religions, etc., 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 found compelling. One thing I will touch on, though, which I think is worth touching on simply because I have 3 minutes and I can do it.
There you go.
And that is the interesting way in which the image of the king survived in the Shire. Remember that the Thane was supposed to be the representative of the king, like the Lord Lieutenant or the Governor General. They sent the troops off to, they claimed to send a group of archers off to the last battle at Foremost. Nobody else remembered having done so, but the hobbits were sure they had. It always reminded me of the Principality of Liechtenstein sending troops to the Austro-Prussian War. That obscure bits of history, ladies and gentlemen, will pop up in your head at the strangest times.
We will wind up winning Jeopardy because of this day.
Well, so, and in what war did Liechtenstein?
Exactly.
Never mind. But honestly, the image of the emperor, of the king, overall, filled deep with authority but minimal in power, is a recurring theme. And yet, notice what happens when Aragorn becomes King Elasan. He has sufficient power to reorganize everything and put it into shape. And then what does he do? Lets it run. You notice he puts the Shire completely out of bounds.
Yeah.
He uses his power to impose, shall we say, restrictions, even self-restrictions. So gosh, we're getting down to the wire now. I will say that there is one reference in Lord of the Rings that to this day I find very, very evocative, and it's a minor glancing reference. It's when they mention the Forsaken Inn, a day's ride east of Bray. When for the time I first read that, I fantasized about the Forsaken Inn. I think I've stayed there a couple of times.
Sounds like some motels we run into.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But no, honestly, his grasp, the best way I could put it, was his grasp of history, his grasp of literature, his grasp of theology and philosophy. What do you put all those together, what does it really mean? It's a grasp of reality. I'm going to say that word again, that phrase again, a grasp of reality. Because all of those disciplines are all trying to describe what? Reality. Theology, philosophy, literature, and history. And unfortunately, we were discussing this yesterday, unfortunately they're too often taught as separate things, whereas you need them in combination. And God bless him, J.R.R. did a great job.
Thank you.